Okay, so I'll just begin by introducing myself and what this panel is. So this is just going to be, these are all local filmmakers from this area, whatever that might mean, I guess DMV. And I am originally from Maryland, and I run a bi-monthly film screening based out of Alexandria, Virginia, called Old Town New Films. So definitely look that up. But yeah, so we're gonna just be talking about what it's like to be a filmmaker in this climate specifically, in this area, in the DMV landscape, and just hear stories and get to know you guys. So can you each just we'll go down the line, just introduce yourself and yeah, what exactly you do in the film world.
My name is Jay Saunders. Holy crap, that sound. My name is Jay Saunders. I am an actor, director, kind of everything. I'm currently working on on an archaeological horror film with the director of the Blair Witch Project, Peterson Site 3.
I'm Seyla Hossaini. I am a writer-director from Richmond, Virginia. I'm working on some narrative horror-esque stuff right now, and I also direct a lot of music videos for folks from all over the U.S.
Hi, my name is David Fritzen. I'm a writer, producer, and director based in Richmond, Virginia. I have directed and produced quite a handful of short films over the last 7 years in the area. Recently done a marathon of 48-hour film projects in the Richmond area too. Had a lot of fun with those. If you have questions about those, happy to talk about it. But more recently, I've been working on shorter content too, like short films under 5 minutes, even under 3 minutes if I can.
Chris Farmer, writer director out of Maryland. I shoot mostly in DC. I have a few projects on the way, but I shoot a lot of horror, a lot of short films, music videos. I'm trying to get more into features. I'm hoping to have my first feature written by the end of next year, try to get a crowdfund. So I'm dreading, but I'm also hopeful for that. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. We have a pretty eclectic crowd here. So I first want to just ask, have you guys always been based out of the DMV? Are you from here? And if not, what brought you here? But if you are from here, have you worked in other places? And how have you felt like that has differed versus this area? Yeah.
Personally, I've been in DC for a while in Northern Virginia. I started working in DC professionally as an actor around 2007. By the time I got to 2012, I just felt that I wasn't seeing the kind of projects that I wanted to be in. Had been doing a lot of theater, a lot of film, so I wasn't seeing the kind of stuff I wanted to be in. So I said, hell, I'm just going to go ahead and make it myself. So I've been professionally making my own stuff since about that time.
Great, thanks.
I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. I mostly shoot in Richmond in Virginia. I've also done some shooting in the Carolinas as well. I usually have convinced clients from, especially from New York, to shoot in the Virginia area because it's more inexpensive to get locations, to be quite honest. So my recent client from New York, she came here to shoot so that we could find more inexpensive locations than in New York City.
So I was raised in Northern Virginia, close to DC, and I just found that I really enjoyed it there, but every time I moved to Richmond, I just walked in around the town and thought, why don't I live here? And in 2021, I moved down, and I noticed a slight difference in the sense that there's more convenience, in the sense it was easy to find a community very quickly, but I don't necessarily attribute that to the fact that it's Richmond versus Nova. It's more the fact that it's just we're in a smaller city, we're all concentrated, it's easy just to go, meet somebody quickly at a theater, grab a drink somewhere 2 minutes away, rather than how spread out it is in Northern Virginia. So I found, as far as differences go, even in the DMV versus Richmond is just a little more concentrated in a smaller city compared to being more spread out. But very similar vibes as far as just everyone wanting to work and collaborate together.
You're like my neighbor, basically.
I know.
New collaboration upcoming?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So raised in Maryland, spent a lot of time working out of DC for jobs and just summer stuff. Got into filmmaking with a group called the Cool Kids Forever Films. We did a lot of music videos around 2000s, early 2000s, with a lot of local hip-hop scenes. And from there, I kind of wanted to kind of do more narrative stuff. I always loved film and writing. So I just started to kind of write and produce my own short films, most stuff in my house, most stuff in my mom's house. And from there, COVID kind of hit, and I kind of lost my mind, like most of us did, and just kind of shot like 5 films in my house in that kind of time span. One of them I showed here last year, and I think from there I just kind of got used to the idea of kind of self-financing, self-producing, but also got hit recently to the DC film scene that offers like a lot of grants and money if you need it. So yeah, just kind of getting used to the idea that DC has a great community that may be small, but it's powerful and it's really focused and focused on collaboration as well. So I found a nice little click here.
That's what's so interesting about this area. Is like what I want to talk about a little more with you guys is that it feels like the DMV, we don't really think about the film scene when we think about the DMV. Like obviously we're going to think about New York, LA. And so us, like a lot of us mostly only working here, I guess what I've found, because I also live in Montreal and I do film stuff there, is that what's really special about this place, and I guess I can compare it to Montreal in that sense, is that it's very indie and like indie focused, and that there's more of an ability for us to find our community just like grassroots, and it doesn't feel like extremely competitive in that sense. So I would love to hear more about that from you guys, of how you've found your community here in filmmaking.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the DMV is such a weird place to be doing film in general. You know, if from the actor's side, you're not, they don't really have casting agencies here. You know, I'm sure many of you may have heard of Brian Dragonuk. You know, that was just kind of like a bizarre thing where this guy would just send out this email of casting notices in the area, and all the other casting agencies would just send it over to this one guy who would just send out an email. So very, very different than what you'd have in, say, New York or LA, where everyone just knew, oh yeah, you just got to meet Brian Dragonuk. So, I mean, that kind of sets up the mindset of what the DMV is like. It's very, very, very scrappy. The wonderful thing about this area is we have to play by completely different rules than in LA. And in LA or New York or any other place, the things that we do have to our advantage, the resources that we have, you have a lot of guys who are, you know, prior military, who love things about film. You have all these different communities outside of the film world that are so interested in just, oh yeah, I'd totally love to make a film. Because we're trying to reach outside of just the film community, those are really your best strengths in this area.
I like a lot of what you said. I would agree with like what you said about strengths here versus places like New York or LA. I feel like the question was how to start building our community. I will say I started building my portfolio by shooting and making films with people who are friends, just people I knew who were willing to like help me out with making stuff to start building a portfolio. And then I started getting, you know, people reaching out to me through social media. I feel like social media has really been, just like literally Instagram has been one of my biggest tools for connecting with people, honestly. I've had people that I had never heard of reach out to me about wanting to work with me after I started to build up said portfolio. But also I feel like Richmond is really starting to thrive with the film scene. We have the like Richmond Film Network that brings people together a lot for mixers. We have the Virginia Production Alliance. I started going to a lot of those mixers when I started delving more and more into film. So I feel like Richmond is really starting to thrive with its own film scene. Whenever somebody tells me to move to LA, I'm like, you have no idea what's going on here right now. Big things are happening.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned social media. I feel like that really evens the playing field in a lot of ways. Like we are really lucky now for that we can, anyone can release their films and you're getting people reaching out to you because of that. I relate. Like, I just think also, especially being from rural Maryland, I was like, there's no way anyone will ever find out. Like, I will never find my community. So it's really cool to like talk to other locals about how that happened for you guys. And social media, I think, is a huge part of it.
Yeah, and I came from the music scene. I'm still am in a touring band. So I feel like you know, we started booking tours like ages ago through social media, and it's kind of like the same with film. You just kind of like, sometimes you just blind reach out to people, and you'll be surprised who wants to work with you just based on seeing like what you're putting out there.
Totally, just put it out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think of if I should go with the time that I started building like a community in Northern Virginia or in Richmond. I'm going to start with Richmond because I feel like when I moved to Richmond, I almost had to start over because so many people I liked working with, they were just in Baltimore. They were just too far away. It was just too much of a stretch. So by the time I moved to Richmond, I had a 15-minute short film that was still running in the film festival circuit. And for those that have films in the film fest circuit, you know that you really can't have it on YouTube typically. It needs to be, you know, locked behind a Vimeo link with a password and such. And I thought to myself, I need to do something or make something to show other people what I can do. So I did a couple of things. I challenged myself to make a 1-minute short film with my little Panasonic GH5 camera. It's like a $500 camera these days, and like a tube light and a few friends, and put that on Instagram. And then we had the upcoming 48-hour film project, and I basically wore way too many hats, but brought whatever friends I could that were willing to help to make that. And when I went to that screening, it's much like we're doing right now, met a bunch of people that I thought, hey, I loved your film. And they go, no way, I loved your film. Do you want to like hang out? Yeah, let's do that. And so it just started building from there. Is really what we're doing actually right now today here is just this budding network of communities that are coming together in film festivals. You see something you like, go meet them, go talk to them. If they're not here, like look them up on Instagram and stuff. There's plenty of times I'll see a film and go, I love the lighting of that. I want to see more from that gaffer. We're all in this community together. And so I find that really, bottom line is just if you can make something with little resources you have to start, or start hanging out at a festival, start meeting people and talking to people. It just keeps building from there.
I wouldn't say my situation or experience is unique, but it's a bit different than the ones in Virginia. Since I live so close to D.C., a lot of my main like actual production work came through either BET or radio circuit. So a lot of people who were actually cameramen, who people did audio, were often in the scene who just didn't really have anything to do outside of actual coverage and production like that. So there was a time when some of my mentors who had just left working from BET or working for the radio station were like, hey, let's do some music videos. So we started to actually just find every artist we could that needed songs, good or not, that needed videos, and we would go and shoot them. And after a while, like you said, to social media, people were saying, who did that, and it would usually be us. It would be like 7 or 8 of us just shooting maybe, I don't want to exaggerate, but probably 30 to 40% of the videos coming out of DC in like 2001, 2007, 2008, at least hip-hop wise. And from there, you know, to be stagnant is kind of rob yourself a little bit of creativity. A lot of us doing that for that long and doing those same type of rap videos can get a little bit stale. No offense to the craft, but you know, filmmaking to me has always been like an expression and storytelling, and storytelling is a little bit limited in music videos depending on the source of the music. So I started to do a lot of writing, do a lot of producing, and people tend to like the writing. And so the community was built by saying, hey, I want to act. You got something I can act in? Sure, I have a script. I have a camera, stuff like that. So very similar to the scrappiness of like coming together with people who have what you need and want to do what you want to do, and just building off those people. And to co-sign him, I think I had the most experience and most success with networking. Hey, I shoot, I like what you do, what's your Instagram? That looks cool as hell, I'm gonna do that too, let's work. It's just about finding people who do cool shit that you do and say, hey, let's collaborate. Because when it comes to filmmaking, we don't have a lot of money, but we do have a lot to barter with, which is our time, our experience, and our passion for this. And like when you exchange that, you know, good things happen.
Absolutely, and it's interesting how as you rise in the film industry, you get more of a choice in who you work with, right? Like at first it's like, oh, please anyone help me. But then later you're like, okay, I'm building this community, and so I can kind of pick my crew more. And then, so I'm really curious about, in terms of crews for you guys, have you found your people that you often stick to, or does it switch up every time? And if you want to take it in the direction of like, is there a particular creative relationship in your life that's been really fulfilling?
I would love to jump on this one because this is the only reason I'm still here. My community is fantastic. I have a very small list of my favorite DPs, my favorite gaffers, my favorite sound guys, because like people said before, the community is small but it's strong. There have been times where I've been on sets with people thinking I'm just, like gaffing for a community event or like a government interview, and one of my homeboys is doing audio or running gaff. Leon Spades, What a Weekend.
I know him. We just worked with him.
I just got off a set with Leon. We just did, 14 hours from Wednesday to Friday. That's why I sound so terrible. But yeah, like Leon is a great community resource. He produces, he gaffs, he grips, and I just AD for him. He directs now too. So that community is strong. And I've seen the same faces through most of his shoots and the one I did before. And I'm getting happy that the more I go on these sets, the less strangers I see. And I think that's the part of the community that helps me the most, is that like I know that they've seen that I can do work, and the same with them as well. So I have a very tight-knit circle. I have the choice to pick people, but I think I have the people who I need with me right now.
It's kind of like this area has a sweet spot where it's like not too small, but then it's small enough where you run into the same people and you're like, oh, this is really like. Yeah.
No, that's the best part. Like I keep seeing people keep saying this is really, really small. Like on the set I had before, the medic was somebody I worked with back when I was in high school doing community service. So the city is small, just small enough that you know people, that you see enough that you have to connect. It's like I saw you 4 times in like a month. I'm not going to see you again without getting your number. This is madness. So, and I think that turns into relationships. I think that proximity and time and love for this stuff builds relationships more than just, what your skill set is. Because like you grow together, I know for people here who are independent filmmakers, every new set is a rep. You're getting experience points. I'm getting better at this, I'm getting better at that. Stats are going up. So if I see the people going up with me and we're all getting leveled up, like, yeah, I don't think I have a reason to grab anybody else if I have people with me who can, get it done.
Absolutely. Anyone else have, yeah.
I don't have too much to add, because that's really, I love your phrasing when you're talking about how you just see less and less strangers each time and more familiar people. That is absolutely 100% true. My favorite thing as far as having a community of people, though, is once you build that trust with people, because you do want to make sure that you can rely on people. You want to make sure you can count on them to do their role and what their craft is, and you know that they're good at it and they want to get better at it. So it just gets to a point where you have so much fun with these same people that if you see a job coming up or an opportunity coming up and you know that, you need a good editor, call that editor and say, you want to come play with us? There have been plenty of times anyone who's worked with me said, like, I'll say, do you want to play? Because it just feels like fun. There's some sets that just feel like, summer camp, and we're just having a good time doing what we love doing.
We call it the alley-oop. It's like, I got a gig coming up. I'm an AD. I need a second. Hey, alley-oop. I'm in there. So, yeah, no, same thing.
Absolutely.
I definitely have my go-tos. Shout out to Victor Collins, who's my DP on like everything now. Victor. We've done so many projects together now, and we have like a great working relationship. I'm very thankful for him and hoping to bring him on my first feature film. Noah, you've acted in a couple of my projects, AD'd on projects. We produced a film together and constantly inspire each other. Yeah, I definitely have like a list of go-tos, and then other like people in the atmosphere who, like, if somebody that I usually call can't do it, like there's always the next person. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with working with the same people all the time if you guys work well together. I think we all kind of have that. I mean, it's like you become kind of like family. I mean, that's corny to say, but like if you work with the same people on film sets all the time, you kind of do create a really special, strange bond.
Well, it's really special when you find those people that you really click with, and you're like, oh, I can trust this person. We see things the same way. Yeah. And then when you find that, it's like you want to keep, of course, no shame in like continuing to work with those people. Yeah.
Even like certain actors that I've worked with before, I want to write more parts for them just because of how much they inspired me, with what they brought to the character. Even if we'd only worked together like once or twice, I'm like, oh, I need to write something for that person. So.
Totally. I'll want to talk more about actors after this, but.
Yeah, so real quick, I'm just really curious for those in the audience, who actually does filmmaking in DC or in this area, or is everyone coming from another spot?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Great.
That's cool. I love seeing that.
So the most useful resource that I've found, I have my go-to DPs and certain crew members, but the resource that I've really found the most helpful is partnering with combat veterans. This area is full of combat veterans, and the thing that I really love about working with them is they bring an entirely different experience than you, an entirely different way of solving questions, of solving problems that are completely foreign to what you would do in a regular film crew. When you have combat veterans be part of your community, part of your team, they're always bringing an attitude of humbleness, eagerness, a willingness to learn, and they are going to be with you from the moment you start to the moment you end. And when it comes to film, because we're setting that community, it's so important to us as artists, as we're telling stories, is to sit with people who are maybe across the aisle from us. When you develop that level of trust, when they are willing to share stories with you, maybe stories that they wouldn't even tell their wives, that's something that you treasure. And that takes your worth and your value so much further than what you just have on the screen. Being able to partner with them, they are going to be with you until the day you die.
That is so fascinating. I feel like probably a lot of us in the audience are surprised by that, because you're talking about on the crew end, right? Or are you talking about acting?
On the crew end, even actors, if you're looking for extras. I mean, I've been working with, one of my best friends, and has become my best friend because of filmmaking. He was tip of the spear in Iraq. He was psychological operations, and I have another guy who is, Marine Corps interrogator. They're so fascinated by things that are, so foreign to what they've done in the military, but they love the concept of telling stories. These guys tell the best stories, and to be in an environment where you get to feed off of that and go back and forth, it just makes that environment so much more collaborative. These guys were willing to, absolutely, I'll jump on screen back there and be a dead body. I'll be a 6'8" zombie with a complete barrel-chested guy. I have guys who fantastic. This has happened right after the whole Rust incident, where I needed guys with weapons. I needed guys with firearms to come on set and do a sweep of this building. And of course, a lot of crew members were very, very nervous because that Rust incident had just happened. But these are guys who I've filmed when they've gone and actually shot in competitions. I've been right behind them. And they are some of the best shooters in the world. So to feel like these guys could actually bring their own weapons, I knew that they know how to control everything, that they could wave, a weapon right in my face as the camera, and to know that, I felt safe with them. It's such a different experience because, as filmmakers, we want to make sure that everyone is safe.
Yeah, I was going to say, we promote gun safety for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then who is more capable of doing that than someone who's been trained, who has their own armory, who does that every single day and can bring that level of authenticity and just enjoy that level of storytelling. So I think being in this area, that is one of the most helpful, meaningful relationships and resources that you can have.
Well, that's interesting. That kind of leads me into talking about, this area is so inherently politically charged, like the DMV area, and especially right now, it's really intense, like with the militarization of DC. And I don't know if we don't have to particularly talk about how politics affect your films, or if they do. I am interested in that, if you want to speak on it. But how does this landscape particularly, has it inspired your filmmaking in any way? And how have we seen that as a part of your film? Like, just this area.
Personally, my films have been almost always previously rooted in fiction. But after seeing what I'm seeing here, I want to take my camera out and just go shoot. I think I've always loved watching documentaries, but I've never been a person who've actually made them myself. And I think there's a beautiful thing about capturing moments as they happen and being able to articulate what that moment means for that moment. I said moment a lot, but I think the message is there. The idea of being this right now in DC with the administration doing what they're doing, capturing as it's happening now in a way that can't be tainted later on. Because I think what we're seeing now is with politics kind of shaping how things happen with their design. And as artists, I think it's our job to kind of tell the story as it is. Not to go too film nerd on you, but there's a movie called...
Please do.
Oh.
We are all film nerds
This is
here,
the
I
place
think.
for it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, thank you. There's a movie called Snowpiercer, and I think one of the main points about that movie was the artist being the only person that told the truth about what was going on. Everybody was lying to everybody, but the artist and his pictures showed what the truth was. And I feel like in a lazy metaphor, that's what we're doing right now. I think it's an opportunity for us to be the voice that tells, no, what they're saying is lying. This is what actually happened. And like I said, like I've never been the person to kind of bring that stuff into my films, but I'm being inspired to say I at least have to say something with the power that I have, even if it's something that's poorly articulated. My voice is one that needs to be heard.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, go ahead. But yeah, like you feel a duty right now, almost.
Yeah, I think for me, being a black person, it's less of a duty and more of a responsible form of regular protest. It's really important for my voice to be one that is a voice that represents people that look like me and represent people who understand my experience. So I can't let nobody else tell that story besides me.
It's natural.
Yeah, so like I would be a fool to say, yep, I think he's right. No, I was there. This is what happened. This is what the people who I know tell me what happened. So yeah, I think that. Sorry, you guys. I'm not really good at talking, so you guys got me spurred up, and I'm having a good time here. So I'm gonna start ranting a little bit. But yeah, it's the point of us doing this as filmmakers. It's telling stories, and telling stories is telling truth, fables, myths, all that good stuff. It's legacy, and I feel like right now we're living in times where that stuff can be taken from us, and we have to own our own legacies. We have to own our own voices and own our own stories. So yeah.
You put that really well. Yeah, you're not rambling at all. Go ahead.
Holy shit.
I would, in terms of how like the political climate or any of this has affected like me artistically, I would say I just thought of a quote that somebody told me once that was like, all art will become political. So just the way I approach it is like I feel like I'm just continuing to make idiosyncratic art, and if people want to apply political meanings to it, they will, and inevitably somebody will interpret something as political. And I mean, I'm a person living in the climate we live in, so like at some point, the more I keep writing, it will reflect that in some way, whether it's like, I don't know, coming from like a Middle Eastern background or being a queer person or whatever it is, like it'll be reflected in my personal experience, if that makes sense.
No,
like,
absolutely. Your art reflects you, right?
Yeah,
So
and I don't personally ever try to, at least for me personally, I don't ever say I'm going to make a statement. I just write my experience, and the statement will come out.
That's a statement. That's the beautiful part about this.
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what we do. Like it's never intentional. You're
Yeah,
making
yeah,
a statement. I think that's
Just by
that's
being
the power.
honest.
Exactly. That's the
Yeah.
power we have as creatives. Like whatever we show, we have the choice of what we do and how we show it.
Yes,
That's the statement.
exactly.
absolutely. Yeah. Did you have
I'm going to scale it back or take it back from 2025 all the way back to 1996, where the famous Saturday morning cartoon, The Amazing Spider-Man, aired on Fox 5 as kids. And you have a very redheaded David Fritzen in first grade who was so excited and wanted to be just like Peter Parker and thought he was Peter Parker because that version of Spider-Man was also a redhead. And there was a moment in that years ago where MJ was talking about going on a date with him, like, oh, he's so cool, he's going on a date with a girl. And she said, hey, Peter. I said, yeah. He goes, make sure this time your socks match, because of him being Peter Parker. And I ran up to my room in first grade and I mismatched all my socks because I thought to myself, all I had to do to be Spider-Man was to change my socks. And so years later, when I saw certain news outlets complaining and whining and crying about saying, why does it have to be Black Panther? Why does it have to be this? And I thought to myself, I looked at all these kids, all they had to do was change their socks this time around. And then years and years later, as a 34-year-old man, I was watching, certain things that we've had more queer representation, LGBTQ representation, which has been phenomenal. And there's been some that have come out that just made me feel like that's not quite like me. I'm no Billy Eichner by any means. Don't really look like him, talk like him. And then we had a moment where we had the episode of the famous series The Last of Us, where there's a famous episode of Nick Offerman. And that moment gave me a moment where, as a bisexual man that doesn't talk about it often, I had my first change of my socks moment in years. And after that, I thought to myself, whenever there's a chance to tell someone's story, whether it's, about Spider-Man, whether it's about the stories like that, those are the times that we got to tell those stories, and those have to be preserved. So anytime that you hear a news outlet saying, like, it's like, why do we have to tell everyone's story? Because it's necessary. Because everyone's story needs to be told.
Man, you're going to make me cry. That's really beautiful. No, we have such a power. We really have a power, and like that's such an important thing to point out. Like anything we put out there, like you never know the reach that it's gonna have. So thank you for sharing that anecdote. It's really touching.
Thank you.
So did anyone else have something to add right now, or I'll go. Well, just to bring it back to like, I want to dive in more a little bit into the maybe. Like in terms of our area, there are a lot of microcultures, right? That's anywhere. But I want to know more about like what exactly you guys are making films. I mean, you talking about veterans, like that's kind of a microculture within this area. I mean, that exists in other places, but that's particularly here. Like there's a lot of veterans that you pointed out. So I want to hear more from everyone if you've ever been influenced by any like the culture here, and if that's come through in your art, or if you think in the future maybe you want to make something that has to do with culture here. Yeah.
So the project that we're working on right now, it's an archaeological horror movie that takes place in the 80s, and it involves a tunnel rat from the Vietnam War. If you don't know anything about tunnel rats, when the Viet Cong would the way they'd move through the jungle was they would dig these tiny tunnels that were miles and hundreds of miles long. And when the Americans first discovered them, they would turn to the smallest guy in their unit and say, well, we just have this hole here. We don't have no idea what's down in there. We don't know if there's booby traps or anything, but we'd really like it if you would go down there. So it would be the smallest man in their unit who would have to crawl headfirst into this tunnel with nothing but a flashlight and knife. And those tunnels were filled with death traps. And with the project that we were doing, I mean, those, there were tripwires. There would be Viet Cong in there with bamboo shards that would, in trapdoors that would, stab at people's necks. And you'd be crawling inch by inch this tunnel in complete darkness. And, these men had a completely different experience of the war than everyone who was topside. It was complete isolation in the dark and absolute fear. Being in this area, some of you, does anyone know what a standardized patient is, or I've heard about that? DC has these actors where they will meet with military therapists, and they would portray soldiers who may have some sort of mental health issue. It could be PTSD, it might be suicide awareness, it might be paranoid schizophrenia. And we have so many of these actors who have, like I said, have had to cross the aisle and learn from these stories from actual veterans who would share, this was my moment of trauma. This is what happened to me in Iraq. This is what happened to me in Vietnam. And they would recount the story moment by moment, sense by sense, because they would say, I can't portray this for these students. You need to be me. And that's really like I said, the point of any kind of art that we do is to cross the aisle, to try to learn from as many people as possible and find those little bits of the human condition that bind us together. Because that spans time, race, culture. We're able to look at someone completely different and say, hey, we're on the same wavelength by this. this area is such a wonderful, wonderful place to be able to do that. And for me, I've tried to, like I said, put myself in the shoes, in the presence of all these people who have had these, you know, wildly crazy and different positions that I can never possibly imagine, and find those things where, you know, we connect and share that in our stories.
Yeah, finding something, especially like that you're pulling from personally as well, maybe. Like, I know for myself, I'm really interested in the music scene here, and that has a big influence. And I mean, very different, and I don't know exactly what your connection, but it sounds like you've had some very personal relation there. So, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, the mental health thing is something that I think is very, very prevalent now and has always been. And that's something that, you know, like I said, for the military, they've just been trying to attack in the last decade, thankfully. So when you have all these people who are trying to find a way to share their story and don't have the tools to be able to do it, you know, partnering with filmmakers is such a wonderful way, because we're trying to find empathy. We're trying to find the way that we can, you know, like I said, find that human condition and the best way we can use our tools to put that on screen.
Absolutely, yeah. Please.
When it comes to the culture in this area influencing work, I want to say I'm a huge proponent of trying to promote stories that aren't just based in New York or LA, because there's so many interesting things happening, especially in like small towns, even in like rural areas or states or cities that no one's heard of. Like that's where some real shit happens. So I mean, the proof of concept short that I just worked on and the feature that I'm trying to get funded right now take place in Myrtle Beach. I have a couple other scripts I'm working on that I'm definitely not shying away from making specific references to Richmond, because I think even if people haven't heard of, you know, Richmond, for instance, there are people like the people in Richmond in places even like New York and LA, and there's going to be relatable, you know, trends or things that like people will get even if they don't know about this small town that I'm from. But then there's also going to be this unique flavor that people don't get as often, because everything is, people act like the world revolves around these big cities. So I would say that like I fully let, you know, my surroundings influence me and try to tell my most objective truth about where I'm from. And I think that that's something that everyone should do, and it'll make your work more unique.
I was just having that conversation about like, I think it's not rare for people to shy away from going niche because they want to appeal to more people. And I think maybe they're doing the opposite by accident because it's too vague and it like strays from what's true for them. And so like going for niche, like going for what feels true to you, I think often rings very true to everybody. So that's like a really great point.
I just wanted to bring up quickly, we talk about, you know, how not everything takes place in New York or LA. You're saying in small towns. Has anyone seen the movie Eddington this year?
Yes.
Just quick show of hands. Okay. I just want to say, I can't stop thinking about that movie. That thing lives rent-free in my head. If you want to talk about it later after, we can.
Please, I've seen it 4 times.
Right.
I'm still trying to articulate what it meant, but yeah.
Yeah. But back to culture and everything. I've always been very, very involved in, I'm going to concentrate on one particular part of the scene, whether it's Northern Virginia or, you know, here or even nationwide, is I'm very big into the heavy metal community. It's definitely a community where I never everyone is so kind, so welcoming of all different people. And I always felt that, like, as a loner in high school, I was the only Jewish metalhead theater kid in a Catholic high school in Northern Virginia, just for context.
That's quite a mix.
I would go in with my Slayer.
That's a movie I'd watch right there.
Right?
Absolutely.
I thought about it. I'd go in with my Slayer hoodie every day, but and then go see shows like at clubs and stuff. But my point being is that I have spent the last couple of years doing concert photography and just capturing that, because I thought to myself, I brought back those moments of when I would steal my parents' Sony Cybershoot in like 2007 and take photos there, and I just thought I need to document this more, because the kind of performances you see in small clubs like that is electrifying, and the community is just so amazing. And most recently, the community has really shown, you know, how tight-knit we are, in the sense of we just lost Ozzy Osbourne a couple months ago, and more recently we lost Brent Hines, who is the lead guitarist of a famous band called Mastodon, who I've seen 20 times. I have met them multiple times, and I mean, I've been listening to them for more than half of my life, and I'm still processing that one myself. And so I find that I have been more compelled to take everything I've made with my concert photography and such and tell more stories in that culture because, again, part of our jobs as filmmakers is to document these things. We want to make sure this stuff is preserved. And so that's what I plan to do lately as far as culture and what I'm doing with filmmaking.
No, absolutely. I mean, the metal scene is huge here, and it's like all through the South also. It's just like particular. So, I mean, that's so cool that you bring that up.
Thank you.
I love what you said about the small town, and I think for most people, a common connecting thread, more people can relate to the small town experience than the big city one. And coming from PG County, it's not like a small town, but it's small enough that nobody really knows that it exists, and it doesn't really matter. But being so close to DC, the culture is such a unique blend of the suburban ideals and like the city energy. With Go-Go being a massive part that kind of bleeds over the state line into all parts of the area in the DMV. Even down in North Carolina, there was a band that I went to when I was in college. But the point being is, like, I think that just feeds who I am as a person, as an artist. The culture of this area is just in my blood because this is what I consume, and it's kind of influenced me. And I think as artists, we kind of wear our influences on our sleeve and in our lenses. And I think that like the city, at least, I hope comes to mind. And I think what I want to do in the future is something I see Spike Lee do a lot, where he treats New York like it's a character in itself. It has a voice. It has a blood flow that you don't get in a lot of other people. And I think that every city has that kind of feel to it, and it's up to us to kind of show that. And I think DC has such a hodgepodge of cultures because like the metal scene in this area, down the street from here, is insane. Like the clubs we have here, like there's a deep rooted rock scene in this area that nobody knows about. I have a feature I'm working on next year about the comedy scene here, where DC is also a hub for comedians, from Chappelle, from Martin Lawrence. People don't understand, like, built the comedy scene for this country. So I wanted to start researching now, just going to the clubs and seeing the difference in the scene from the 90s to where it is now. And again, go 4 blocks in DC, you can have a hip-hop club, go-go club, a rock club, comedy club, and a jazz club. And you can walk to all of those, and like that's what makes DC what it is. And it's funny because most people here on the panel, besides myself, are representing Virginia in some capacity. And Virginia always felt like the part of the DMV that's not really respected as much because the V is at the end. And like, come on, Virginia's here too, guys, come on. But I appreciate the fact that you guys can come into the city and find a community here that's still very unique to yours, because that's what makes DC cool to me. And not everybody's experience in DC is the same. You can't claim that your part of here is the same thing as somebody else's. So I like that everybody has a different version of this city, and I think that that's what makes the city unique compared to New York and LA's, where it's like, New York is known for this. It's for its fashion, its speed, its energy, its music. LA is known for LA. And then DC has this title of politics and nothing else, where it's like, no, we go just a block away from the Capitol, that's where this city really is. So, yeah.
And DC is interesting because it's so small compared to the MV part. Yeah.
If you look at it on the map compared to any of our contemporary cities that were mentioned around, you can fit like 15 DCs in certain cities, and it's kind of insane. And like people don't realize how much that impacts the culture, that proximity.
Well, exactly, and that's what creates this very specific vibe of DC because
Yeah, so that's what makes the DMV so interesting to me, is that the DMV exists as it is because it's kind of all those places hover around the core of that small city. Like passing through to get to any part of around these areas, you have to go around DC. You have to see DC in some capacity. So I think DC, the danger of DC gets over all the areas around it, and I think that's what makes that culture so powerful. That was an ugly metaphor, and I'm sorry for that.
But it's actually interesting, like what you said about going to comedy clubs in the 90s versus now. That's like a perfect lead into something I wanted to talk about, which is all of you guys have been in the industry more than me. I don't know how much longer, but I'm kind of like a baby, and so I'm like learning from you guys right now. But I would love to hear, like, I was just interested in how you might have seen the film scene in the DMV evolve over the years, like, depending on how long you've been in it. Obviously, social media, I'm sure, has been a big factor, but just kind of getting your perspective on that.
I've got to jump in this one, like, coming from music videos, seeing us go from cinema cameras to DSLRs back to cinema cameras was fascinating. The 5D Mark series was running things in the city for a while. And so to see just the technology evolve over time, where it went from, I just have a camera for photos, but I can shoot video on it too. Why the hell not? from, oh wait, this only does video and it does it in an amazing way. I'm going to there now. So, and you start to see, like I said earlier, where the scrappiness of the indie scene starts to evolve as the technology evolves. And like you said, social media, it's creating a generation of filmmakers that have so few limitations on what they can do and who can see it. Like, just making films in 2001 before TikTok and everything boomed out, we were lucky to get the 15,000 views in the month, you know? But now somebody can do a captivating story on TikTok and get like 1 million views in like 36 hours. Yeah. So you have this very interesting deletion of the barrier from both seeing things and experiencing things. And as filmmakers, we kind of need the eyes, and to me, it's scary. I'm old, so the idea of this many people in this room looking at me now is terrifying. I can't imagine streaming and seeing more of those, but I think it's also making people more aware of their reach in that audience. Like, your voice may be small in Richmond, but like you said, you're getting people reaching out to you from all over the place based on those vibes. So, yeah.
Well, I love the positive look on social media, because I think we hear a lot of like, this is ruining our attention span.
And it is,
and
but I'm not going to get there now.
We have 15 minutes. But yeah, no, ruining it, and it is. But like, I love your attention to the positive of like, everyone gets a voice now, especially like in this time when we need a voice, to kind of go back to that. So literally any of us can speak, hopefully for a while. But yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Whoever else has something to say.
Sure. No, I mean, it's I for context too, as far as where I stand, like where I started. You mentioned the Canon 5D with the DSLR wave. I had the Panasonic GH2, which is some might know. Yeah,
I have a GH4 still.
You're right on. I still got my 2. It's great. But I rode that wave of realizing, like, wait, we can take these small cameras and make what we want. I can only imagine what it's like for a newer filmmaker to play around with, messing with, shooting in 24 frames per second on an iPhone or an Android and such, or even just buying a budget camera or one that has been discarded. Because what kills me is watching people buy expensive gear, and there's so many. The used market is insane for what stuff you can buy these days. I was just talking to Noah in front of me about how his camera he's had for years, and he's planning on, if he needs to upgrade, he's just going to get something that's on the used market that is going to perform just as well. It's the person behind it that's using it. So I find that, some people might get mad people are shooting on phones and stuff. Some people might get excited. I find it's like, whatever tool is making your film and telling your story, go for it, man. Like, I want to see what that is, however that started, too. So that's how I feel with it, with all these changes.
This isn't as much about, like, well, maybe it is, I guess, in my personal experience, too, but just in terms of watching, like, the industry as a whole, I mean, like, I would say women directors are definitely getting a lot more attention, a lot more spotlight these days, which is really cool. As somebody who's always been a fan of, like, really weird, like, female-directed, like, body horror films. Like, we're getting a big dose of that right now, which is awesome. So I'm like, come on, I've been waiting for everybody to be on this wave. So that's, like, the coolest change I feel like I've seen. And I feel like, people are just getting more into, like, weird stuff. Like, there's been so many cool horror movies coming out. But
oh, true.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as somebody who makes kind of, like, weird stuff, it's cool to...
This is your time.
This is the time, guys.
Yeah, no, I really want to hear about that, like, your experiences with, like, how the industry as a whole has changed versus just, like, technology, which is super interesting. But that particular, like, who's getting spotlights now, and, like, talking about the comedy clubs, just, like, how that has evolved also, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not like there haven't been, for instance, female writers and directors, like, throughout, as long, like, they've been around for forever. It's just people haven't been paying attention enough.
Yeah, to her point, again, like, the female directors is very similar to Jordan Peele kind of brand of horror, or the Donald Glover type of TV, that surreal black experience that's kind of been ignored before. And I was in that space as a younger person, like, I'm finally being seen as the black weirdo. Yeah. And I think that type of not, I wouldn't say the retention, but the acceptance of that voice. And similar to what you said, like, I remember when I saw Titane or even
That's like my favorite movie.
See, when you said female body horror, I thought that in the substance. But like, yeah, no, like I remember there was a time when people would look at that film and say she's out of her mind, lock her up. When
No,
it's
I
now
feel like
like
she set it off.
yeah. So like seeing that happen and seeing that audiences are either being more open to weird or more weird people are being open to sharing how happy they want to see weird shit. I think either way, we're getting much more of a diverse audience. I think that we needed.
I remember seeing Coralie Farjit. I can't pronounce her last name. Farjit.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm butchering her name, but I mean, like when I saw her movie Revenge, which I feel like nobody has seen, I followed her and she followed me back. Like when she had like 2,000 followers, like a while back, and I was like, whatever she does next is going to be huge. And then she
Can
made
DM
this
her.
episode.
I was on that same train. I was like,
She's too big now, but
when I heard the director of Revenge, I was like, y'all not ready for this.
I was like,
she
whatever
got money
she
now
does
too.
next.
Demi
was-
Moore and money,
Oh my
crazy.
God. I was just like, I felt like I was there from day one, like waiting to see her have her moment. Like,
No, I love seeing the connection.
One of the things I was going to say, as someone who's been actively pitching, the thing that's very, very, very challenging that is so different about this time is having that following. How crucial it is to really start developing that right now, that social media reach. When I'm pitching to investors who have that ridiculous kind of fuck you money, like they want to really know about like what kind of traction that you have, who's already with you. They don't really care about the quality of your product, what your product is. They don't want you, they want your followers.
Just buy followers.
And it's kind of gross that that's kind of what the currency is, but it's also just something that has now become such a necessity for us in terms of what that social media outreach is. But the wonderful thing about that is when you're able to start developing that community, when you're able to start developing, people who are following you, it puts the cards in, on your side, as opposed to feeling like you have to come to other people for that need of whether that's crew, whether that's money. And that's something that we've, started doing, very, very hardcore in the last several months with our film, just making sure that we're inviting more of the community outside of film to be a part of our film. That's the wonderful thing about the horror community is the lifeblood of horror is the fans.
Yes.
that's true.
And the wonderful thing about the horror community is we are the ones who actively seek even the low budget ones.
Yes.
We adore those. And because in my opinion the horror genre is kind of the punk rock genre. It's people who are just scrappy. We love those who just swing for the fences with $0. We love how bad it can be. We love how wonderful it can be because we see a human spirit behind that. So I think when it comes to us making those films and making our own films, making our own horror films, being able to invite that community as soon as possible, as opposed to just kind of reaching out just to the film community, is so crucial nowadays because, unfortunately things have just turned towards that. The currency is followers. But, that's something that I highly recommend getting that. People who see what your voice is.
No doubt that it's a two-sided coin, for sure, the social media. Unfortunately, I think we only have about 5 minutes left, so I want to give you all the opportunity to quickly talk more about those of you who haven't gotten to talk about what your upcoming project might be or what maybe you just released, and where we can find you. Promote yourself. So, yeah, whoever wants to go ahead. Yeah, where can we find you?
I've got to look up my Instagram name so I can
Whoever has it off the
remember
top of
what
it.
it
I can,
is.
That's
I can
good, that's
start if
good.
you want to come back.
You're not
Okay,
totally
so
alone.
I'm making an archaeological horror movie with the director of the Blair Witch Project as our executive producer. We have an Emmy-nominated special effects artist on board. We're constantly putting stuff out there to the community to come and join us because we love that. Our movie is called Peterson's Site 3. You can find us on Instagram at petersons.site3movie.
Number 3.
The number 3, yeah. And our production company is Man in the Arena Films.
The best place to find me is also Instagram. It's at The Artistic Haunting. If you need to hear that again, feel free to come say hi to me. I'd love to meet anybody who's here. Keep an eye out for my upcoming short film. It's called We'll Still Be Here. It should be hitting the festival circuit very soon. It's starring Lindsay Normington, who is in the movie Anora, and Noah, who's right there. And we had a really fantastic cast and crew, and it's a vampire horror short. Proof of concept for a feature.
So my last name is Fritzen, which all my life people have had trouble spelling. It's literally just the word Fritz and then son put together. And so I made my Instagram Son of a Fritz, which is also the name of my production company. And so as far as things I'm doing lately, you'll find a lot of concert photography there. You'll see a couple of small short films. You'll see my 60-second short. But what's coming up soon is you're going to see a new type of short film that was shot last year. It is just wrapping up in post-production that I'm really excited to be sharing. I can't tell you what it is, but it's going to be effectively something that will appear different on social media and appear different in the film festival circuit in a certain way. And I'm not quite sure if it's been done before in the film festivals or just independent films, so I'm very excited to share it. What I can tell you is the working title is 3 minutes, and you'll never guess how long it actually is. But feel free to hang out with me, say hi, happy to exchange Instagrams and stuff. Would love to hear about your work as well.
So I have my Instagram in front of me. It is Christopher_Farmer_. Only thing that's there now is my reel because I got hacked. But I'm working on the DC comedy short. Short. It's about 30 minutes. It is a horror, psychological drama, dark comedy, mixture of, but we're working on that now. Right now we're doing research. We're going to have a crowdfunding campaign top of the year. I want to do a lot of really cool mixed media campaign marketing. I have a really, really finely tuned 6-month plan of attack that I'm hoping that can kind of get the city excited about something new. So yeah, look forward to that. Last Laugh. The Instagram is Last Laugh DC. There's nothing there right now, but more to come. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for this. You have all been super insightful and fascinating. I really appreciate you all bearing with me. It's my first panel.
Mine too.
You did amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Amazing.
And I'll just say my name is Ariel once again, and you can follow Old Town New Films if you want to send your film in for our bi-monthly local filmmakers screening. And we have a word.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? My name is Don Napoleon. I'm with the DC Film Commission office. My colleague, Lakeisha Wells, is in the back. It may be a surprise to you. I'm not sure how many of you have even worked with the film office for permitting or any needs that you need. We're on a mission. We've been there for about a year or two now to really connect with filmmakers. We have a new IG page. It's the DC Film Office. We're also we're getting ready to launch our quarterly networking happy hours, but our goal is to really connect with filmmakers and anyone that's doing storytelling in the city to be able to say we can't promise resources, but whatever information we can provide you with and whatever people we can connect you with, we want to make sure you do that. So if you want to just stop and talk to us when we're here, please call our office, go to the IG page, ask questions. We're on a mission to make sure we elevate what the film office is doing with the community here in the city, okay? Love y'all. This was dope. This was so dope.
Thank you all. That will conclude this. Make sure to go to the local filmmakers screening next door at 6:30, I believe. 6:30.